Meet the speakers: Ronke Oyenuga, educationist and head of school at Green Path Preparatory School, Abuja; Aloyshima Jennifer Shapara, curriculum coordinator at Odyssey Nursery Khalifa, Abu Dhabi, UAE, teacher trainer and assessor; Z Obi, founder of the Home Educators Network and Academy, author and homeschooling mom; Akwogo Anyebunam, international development specialist, author and social innovator.
Hello. Hello everyone, good evening, and welcome back here. Sorry, we had a bit of internet glitch, but thank God that's okay now. Sorry, we're a bit late. Good evening to you again. How are you doing? All right, so we're still on day 2 of the Baby Step to Purpose conference. This is a conference that we have every year in the group Parenting Through Mentorship of Academy and Community on Facebook. And then we have this conference as a way of giving back to the community, of giving back to the world. Really? Yes, giving back to the world, a way of carrying the message of intentional parenting all around the world, a way of saying to parents, you can actually be mentors to your children. We can all be true mentors to our children. We can all embody what we want to see in our children, live what we want to see in our children, so that they can emulate. And then baby steps. We've heard the speakers. If you've been following this conference, you must have heard the speakers say over and over again how it is timely that we're having a conference like this, because yes, baby step is a very, very important thing. ZOB said in her session that it's maximizing your child's potential. So meaning you're recognizing your child's potential, and then you're going to help them start making baby steps towards reaching that potential. And with all this on my mind as a parent, how to help children maximize their potential, how to help children harness that which they have within them. That is why I wrote the book, my first publication, Bedtime Stories for Champions. So this time last year, I think it was about June last year, we launched Bedtime Stories for Champions, about this time last year, right? This is May, June, yes. About this time, we were working on Bedtime Stories for Champions, and we launched it in June of last year. And that book has gone to do remarkably well. Okay, we have had parents and even children who have told us how it's an amazing book, how parents have told us how this book has become the reason why they connect and have conversations with their children. If you've listened to our speakers so far, you must have heard them say over and over again how it's very important that we connect with our children. So that's what Bedtime Story does for you. It creates an opportunity for you to start conversations with your children. And hey, we have gone on to do the next. It's a series now, so we just had the second part out, right? And this time it's about creativity and creativity and creating a stimulating environment in your home. Just like what Z was talking about, right? We need to stimulate our children, especially in the first 3 years of their life. So you need to create a stimulating environment in your home if you are to build a solid foundation. And that's what this second book is. It's all about creating, bedtime stories that will tell about activities that you can do with your children. Let me not spill the beans. But hey, it's about creating a stimulating environment in your home and activities that you can do with your children, so your children are creative. Amazing. So it's going to be up from tomorrow. You can place your orders for this book and the other book that my son and I paired up to write, Mentor Parents: How to Support Your Child to find purpose, and his baby step towards finding his purpose. All right, so tomorrow you can start making your pre-orders for this book. All right, I guess my guest is in the house. Okay, so we've had three amazing women who have a deep compassion for educating and impacting. I guess this was going to happen. All right. So sorry. All right. Sorry about that. It's a Nigeria something. We just had a power cut. All right. All right, so I'll just give it a bit. Okay, before I allow our guests coming here, let's just take care of this power situation. Just give us 1 minute, and we will have some source of power again. All right, then. So yes, so these books are going to be out from tomorrow. We can pre-order for them. Yeah, and I was talking about the women. I said we've had three amazing women who have a passion for educating, a passion for impacting people, whether these people are secondary school children, elementary children, or preschoolers. Right now, the next person that is coming is not a classroom teacher, but it's someone that has the same hunger and the same passion for impact and for impacting people. Okay, so I told you these women are not just, they're not just coincidentally, these people are not just they're not just speakers here. They're people that I have worked with. There are people that I've worked with directly in my life. There are people that I've worked with directly, you know. So Akugo is our next guest, and Akugo is an embodiment of excellence. If you know someone who has a deep thing for excellence, like it's not excellence in a particular area, like everything I touch, I want to do it with, as in I want to give my best to everything that I touch. I remember one time she was making t-shirts and everything, they were beautiful. So for everything that I know that she's done at one point or the other, and this is one person that's not been afraid to try new things, to do new things, to dabble here, to dabble there. I'm talking about someone who as an undergraduate was making money while in school. As the person we're talking about here. All right. And then I said, you know how we look around us and everybody's like, there's nothing here for my child in Nigeria. There's nothing here. They need to go to school abroad, whatever it is. This person is going to tell you she's a three-time scholarship recipient. So she will tell you what it takes. I mean, bring your questions. She'll tell you what it takes, you know, to reach out and grab the opportunities that are beyond the shores of this country. And she will also tell you about the opportunities that we have here. Okay, there are some of us who do not want to Japan, right? So there are some of us who do not want to Japan. We're looking for opportunities here. There are those of us who want to just carry our bag and run away. What are the opportunities there? These are the kind of questions we expect you to ask our guests today. All right, so without much ado, let me bring my guest on screen. All righty. Hello, Akugo. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi. Good evening.
It's good
Can
to have
everybody
you
hear
here.
me? Just to be sure.
What?
Can you hear me? Is it loud?
I can hear you.
So that
I can hear
I need
you.
to increase my volume or something. Okay.
Okay, I can hear you. It's a bit draggy, but I can hear you.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's good to have you here.
Let me. Please.
Okay. Did I send out your bio in the group? Did I even send out your bio in the group this evening?
I'm not sure. I can't say that I saw it.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I'll still send it.
I'm not sure, but you sent it out, I think, yesterday.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right then. So
I think you sent it out yesterday or this morning.
All right then. So by now, I'm sure in the group you're seeing Akugo all over the place and one thing or the other about these people. I've been talking about them. I've been raving about them in the last 2-3 weeks. So yes. So while we will not go into her telling us all that she does and all of that, we will just dive right into the matter and deal with it. All right, so thank you very much, Akugo, for agreeing to be here. We understand how busy you are, and we understand how much knowledge costs. Don't worry. In this community, we understand that knowledge is money, and we do not take for granted that you have come here to give yours for free. So I'm going to just go backstage and allow you to take the stage. Thank you again, ma'am. All
Okay.
right, good.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, everyone. So, good evening. This is Baby Steps to Purpose. I am really, like I said before, I'm so honored to be here. It's always a pleasure to share based on my experiences and based on everything I've learned so far. And when Mary Beth came up with this and invited me and spoke to me about the reasoning behind it, she didn't really need to talk much because I was like, okay, this is what we're talking about. This is what we've been talking about. These are the kinds of platforms that we sat down at some point and we're like, we wish we had something like this where parents could have, gotten some ideas. Because really, I just want to say, even before I start, that coming on here to speak does not mean I am the well of knowledge in all things, right? I think it's important to point that out, that as a parent myself, I cannot say I have it all figured out. That would be a lie, a major lie with a capital L. And it would be a falsehood to come here and tell you I have everything, all my I's dotted, all my T's crossed. Is a lie. What I can say of a truth is I have done, I have achieved a lot of things in my life. I have set goals, which I have achieved. Some I have surpassed, some I have achieved right on target. Some I have not achieved. Okay, so I'm still on a journey myself. And I think becoming a parent actually made me think a lot deeper about some of the experiences I had growing up and how they were able to prepare me for the opportunities I was able to access later in life. So, why am I even qualified to host this session of nurturing or grooming a global citizen? Like Mary Beth said, I'm a 3-time scholarship recipient, and all these scholarships were internationally funded. And I found that there were some things, there were some major things that I had taken for granted, growing up. And it only became very clear when I became an adult and when I, related with other adults and I saw some of the things that I considered common knowledge were not common knowledge at all. And that is where I said, okay, for everybody that's willing to learn, I'll be willing to teach. Just the same way when I'm willing to learn from other experts or other people who have more experience in other areas, I'm willing to learn. Right? So just keep an open mind. I'm not here to reel out solutions or nothing here I'm saying is like a do this, do that, and you will get this. Results always vary because you're talking about human beings. You're talking about building social capital. So it's not a perfect science, right? But the important thing as parents is to make sure that you do your part. So in all of this, don't feel too pressured. Don't feel, even from listening to all the other speakers, don't feel that you're under pressure to be all of these things at the same time. The only thing is, with the information you get, whatever it is you can implement, even if it's just one thing you can take away, implement that, and then we go from there. Okay? So having said that, why am I qualified? Like I said, Mary Beth already introduced me, and I said these scholarships were fully funded. And I am not a citizen of any other country except Nigeria, right? But I would call myself a global citizen. Why? Because even if I decide I want to have a global career and I decide I want to move to another country, I have actually done the research and I've seen that there are so many countries that I am qualified to move to if I choose to. That's not the same for a lot of us, right? Where some of us are only in positions that we're in because we have no other choice. And that's what this is about. This is about integrating opportunities and integrating the kind of parenting that helps your children not only identify opportunities, but prepare adequately for them. Because the only thing worse than not having an opportunity is getting an opportunity that you're not prepared for. That one is painful, especially when you see that these opportunities and these things that, other people are getting, they're not smarter than you. They're not more eloquent than you are. It's just that they were able to identify them and they went for them. So that's the whole point of this. And I would say that my upbringing had a very, very crucial role in helping me train my ability to see opportunities and to make the most of them. Now, having said that, let me just say, just like Mary Beth said, I did not, all my education was in Nigeria. In fact, I was trained in the public school system in Nigeria. So I went to a federal school, I went to a federal university, and then I was able to use all of that to get into a top 10, I think at that time it was top 10 university in the UK, right? For my master's degree, fully funded. And a lot of people looked at me and they said, "Oh, Akugo, you're so lucky. You're so lucky." And I would laugh and I would say, "This is not luck. This has been 3 years in the making, 4 maybe, but actively 3 years in the making, because I knew that there was an opportunity. I knew I was not ready for it, but I decided to take specific steps to ensure that I was at least prepared to give it a shot and give it my best shot when the time came." And so it's just a situation where you're like, prepare yourself to the point where if you did not get it, it is not because you were not ready. That's the bottom line of all this. So now, how did I get these results? What led up to this lifestyle? What led up to this goal-driven life, as I would like to say? My parental influence was, in fact, now that I think about it, it was massive. I did not know how massive it was, but the way I grew up, family values were exemplified in my house by doing. I don't think there was ever a time my mother came to me and said, "I want to sit down and talk to you about achievements," or "I want to sit down and talk to you about why hard work and diligence is important. I want to talk to you about integrity." And it was never a lecture. I don't think we ever had. I'm trying hard to remember when she actually made it like a formal teaching moment where she sat us down and she said, you can be stylish on a budget, you can live well. It's not about money as such, but it's about the value and quality of life you're able to live. There was no discussion about that, but we all learned that, my siblings and I. So it goes to show that most of the time we do a lot of superficial things because we are taught that that's what we should do as parents. So we take our children to schools that have, all the trappings of a good school, good in quotes, or we put them in groups where certain kinds of people are in. In and of itself, it's not a bad thing. But if you put a child who you have not instilled with the values from home in those groups, they're just going to be floating around with any wind that blows. That's not the parental influence is going to be lacking. And I think that's where most of the issues come from. right? So, for instance, things that I learned growing up, which I saw by doing, was number one, God is the center. My mother did not play with anything that had to do with her Christian faith. She was very diligent. She had a personal relationship with God. So she wasn't overly religious in terms of, oh, I'm better than you, or oh, I never saw that in her Christian walk. And I learned that, and that has also helped all of us have personal relationships with God. And the second thing I learned was that achievement is a given. In the household, you know, whenever we entered that house, we just knew that mediocrity is not allowed here. Let me give you a background. So my mom was, and I speak a lot about my mom because she was more of, she was like the breadwinner for quite a while, right? So she was the more prominent person in the household at the time, and so it's not like there weren't any gaps growing up in our household where in relation to others. But then again, comparison is dangerous, right? Because now, on the flip side, the things I complained about as a child, I can see, you know, how that can be remedied when you grow up. Because really, after you get to a point and you cross this age where you can now make your own decisions, there are lots of things that you can fix, right? And so, but there were a lot of things that she did right. Okay. And that's what even brought me onto the stage today, because my mom did some things right. Now, achievement was a given. So my mom grew up in a very regular household. Her father was a reverend, and so it wasn't like, you know, so this thing about money wasn't really top of mind, right? You need money to do things. You need money to keep the ball rolling. You need money. So yes, there was an income, but it wasn't, the values were the things that were instilled in her household, right? And so the way they went about things is, if you're able to do something, then just do it. And then don't go into a race wanting to be second. Go into a race wanting to win. Because if you're not going into the race wanting to win, then why are you going into the race? So she went into everything she did with that mindset of excellence, with that mindset of I know the background that I have, with that mindset of be valuable wherever you are. So in university, I laughed when Mary Beth was saying all these things about me. I said, "Oh, she's a good guesser. She's every." I learned it from somewhere. It's easy to take all the glory, but yeah, it doesn't just happen. Nothing just happens. I can guarantee you, right? So she, right back in, I think in primary school, yeah, most of her primary school mates, secondary school mates always said she was the math guru. So she used to teach them math in class. She was a tutor very early. And then in secondary school, she was an athlete. She was winning competitions in track and field. She used to, she ran the 100 meters, and I think this 200. She threw the javelin. She did, I think, the discus as well. Yes, she threw the discus as well. And then in university, she went in to study engineering at a time when women were not exactly studying engineering, right? This was just after the war. This was the late 60s to early 70s, and she was going in to study engineering, right? And, you know, in all of these things, meanwhile, back in secondary school, as a teenager, she had competed at African competitions. She had won medals. in the university. She competed in the university games, the West African University Games. She competed. The only reason why she didn't go to the Olympics is because she chose to resume in school that session, and she didn't want to defer her admission. That's the only reason why she did not go on to the Olympics. So you see, like, there is a precedent. It's not, and you can imagine us growing up in a home like that where I remember growing up, I remember so vividly, anytime we went into her room, her medals were always visible. She always put, because she was so proud of the fact that she was able to achieve all of this before she even became a full-blown adult. And she would put her medals just at the side, just hanging by the side. There were about 3 or 4 of them, I remember. And each time we would come into the room, we would just walk past and we would be like, oh, our mother is so cool, but we would just laugh and, go about our way. But what it instilled in all of us was that you can't make excuses. There's no way. I used to hear, and it put us in line, because it's not just about achieving, it's about the expectation. How do I say? It's not a bad thing. I'm trying to use the right word. It's not just about achieving, but about the fact that nobody is going to make you feel bigger than normal for coming first in class or for winning a medal in an athletics meet, because it's a family value. It's what we do, right? So it's not, it doesn't give you this, you don't go in as a child having this over inflated ego about things that you've achieved, or about, you just achieve because it is the thing to do. You go into every situation wanting to give it your best shot. I learned hard work and diligence because my mom was working in a space that was dominated. She was an electrical and electronics engineer, and she was working in a place where most of her counterparts were either in business, either business managers, business administrators, secretaries, things like that. There was zero. At a point, I think she was the only woman in her whole department. And she rose through the ranks because hard work, diligence, competence were never in question, and she was excellent at what she did. At what she did. So she didn't come to us and start reading her CV to us every day. We saw how hard she worked. We saw how her colleagues related with her. We saw the camaraderie. We saw the respect. And that's why I also learned that you earn respect. So if you have to force people to respect you, then there's something wrong, right? There are certain things that you do, and when you come into the room, people will know that this is this person. When certain things happen, people will know, no, this is not characteristic of this person. Maybe there's a problem. I learned all those things just watching my mom work every day over the years. Things like integrity, things like being stylish and living well, not necessarily being ostentatious or, like making noise and wearing and being loud. I mean, if that's your thing, that's fine. But the way I grew up is to, like, enjoy yourself, but not at the expense of others. I mean, the world is big enough for all the stars to shine. I learned that growing up in my home. I also learned the importance of music, arts, culture. So, a background again, because my mom was fully a career woman and she was working, she found creative ways to keep us engaged, right? So for us, there's no holiday where we're sitting at home. It's impossible. It can't happen. Sitting at home and doing what? Because when we're on holiday, she's still working most of the time. right? And she was like, you can't sit at home with, yes, we had, elder ones and cousins, and the house was always full of adults and things, but it didn't sit well with her. And then again, she was like, you know what? I can't be the one to show you all these things that I have in my head to show my children. So I'm going to use whatever platforms are available, and we'll just work it out. We'll fill whatever gaps. Why I say this is it wasn't convenient for her, right? So it wasn't about convenience, but any little pocket of time that she had, she always maximized it. So I remember she used to take us for she used to take, I think, me, because I was the one that was old enough to go out late in the like evenings, because after work I remember I think 2 or 3 times she took me to the National Arts Theatre. At that time, Steve Rhodes had a choir, and they used to do these performances, sort of what they have in Terra Culture now. They used to have these performances, and the only time she had was just after work. So she wouldn't even change or anything. We would have been back from school for some time. So she would take either me and my sister, or me alone if it was going to run too late. And we would go for these things. And I would see how people relate. I would see the kind of people that went for these things. I would see how they spoke. I would see how they, nobody was screaming at the top of their voices. Nobody was, there was no, what's the word now? There was no anyhowness in those kinds of circles, right? And anytime she had that opportunity to show us that side of life, she always did. I remember going, I think Steve Rhodes' performances, I must have gone to like 2 or 3. I went to the museum. Was it the museum center? No, it was still the National Arts Theatre before museum was there. I think National Arts Theatre, the NIIA. I think it was. They used to have these concerts where they would do Handel's Messiah, so like classical music. I had never gone anywhere outside Nigeria before. My mother had traveled, work had exposed her to a few things. So she was well traveled. And those were the kinds of things I was exposed to, even as, I think I might have been like in primary school, maybe between primary 1 and primary 5. I was going for all these things. I was attending all these kinds of events. During holidays, we would go for craft classes. We would go for camps. There used to be one in Didi Museum. Then it was every summer we were there, and we did all sorts. We painted, we danced, we did arts and crafts of all kinds. We did sculptures, we did swimming. There was nothing that we didn't. Every time we came back, we were totally tired. I would just go to bed, but we've had a full day of fun, but also a full day of learning, and learning in different ways. So what had happened was my mother was actually teaching us how to be interested in other things and how to learn in other places aside the classroom, right? So those are some of the things I learned growing up. So now, what is different between then and now? Now we're raising children in the knowledge age. And I mean, unless you have been living under a rock, the way things have changed in the past, I don't know, maybe in the past 10 years has been astronomical, right? People are not even talking about, just learning how to use computers anymore. People are talking about coding. People are talking about software. People are talking about learning all these applications and learning how to use R and Stata. And there's so many things. Meanwhile, in our own time, in the beginning, if you knew how to use Excel, you were a guru. So you can see that there's a gap. And if you're not in tune with that, there is no way you can prepare your children to be in tune with that. It's impossible. right? So if the first thing is, if there are gaps in your life, or if there are gaps that you see early enough, agree that there are gaps. If your parents didn't expose you the way mine did, as I'm so lucky to have, yes, Mary Beth, yes, she was having me see the world even at that time. If you were not as lucky as that, right? This is not the time to be blaming your parents. Forgive them. It's okay, right? Forgive them. They only did as much as they knew to do at the time. So now moving forward, what are you going to do about this? Because now raising children in the knowledge age, like I said, you're talking high income skills like some of the data analysis and everything having to do with. Sometimes it can be really, really daunting. So especially if you're not a tech savvy person, you're like, you feel lost. Don't be, okay? It just means you have so many more opportunities to make your child a global citizen than you did 10 years ago, believe it or not. So where is the gap? Like in our educational system, like most of us know, especially in Nigeria, we have our educational system has a lot of gaps, right? It's not perfect and it can be much better. I agree. So most of our schools focus on IQ, so the academic part of intelligence. How well can you remember what you've been taught? How well can you give back what we've given you? And in some cases, how well can you critically analyze the situation, right? Very good schools go further and try and instill some sort of emotional intelligence by allowing students take part in competitions, allowing students take leadership positions and be useful in their communities, right? And then but sometimes you don't have the luxury of being in those kinds of schools. That's just the reality. Okay. So what should you do? First of all, let me just say the world has moved on. Before, it used to be just the IQ, which is the intelligence quotient, the EQ, which is the emotional quotient. Now, there is the RQ, which is the resilience quotient. And guess what? If you have lived in a developing country or anywhere in the global south, you have resilience, because living a day in our lives is a miracle. There are people in parts of the world that cannot understand how we survive. And even though we see it as a disadvantage, if you know how to access opportunities, you will see that it's a huge advantage that puts you ahead of so many more people in this world. You just have to know how, right? So in fact, I get questions like, my child goes to an international school, it's a private school, so they have an Olympic sized swimming pool and they have this huge lawn tennis court. They have it. Does your child swim? Does your child take part in these activities? How often do you test their abilities on a larger scale? Because I've found that a lot of us are very good at bringing up local champions. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the world that we're going into, in the world that we grew up in, it was okay. You could be a local champion and still shine on so many different stages because the world hadn't become a global village. But now, your competition is not somebody from Delta State. And if you're in Lagos or from Lagos, it's not somebody from Ogun State. It's not somebody from the North. It's not somebody from, it is somebody from India or somebody, excuse me, from the UK or somebody from the US. It has changed. The barriers have come down, but our skills haven't come up to cross over even those barriers that have come down. And that is where the problem is. We need to upskill and reskill if possible, so that we can ensure that our children get to access these opportunities, right? If your child goes to a private school, that's not all. Or if he goes to a school that has all these facilities, that's not all. As parents, you can come together. If the school has provided the facilities, that's fantastic. You can come together and either try and source for opportunities to test their abilities outside of the school. So if you have inter-house sports, you can also go a step further and say, okay, I want us to go to, I don't know, Ghana, or if you have the funds, go for a competition in Europe. But test the waters outside of your locale. What that does is that it builds confidence of these children, right? And they are not seen to be less than. It's a confidence builder. They don't have to always win, right? So don't let our own fears, or let's not project our own fears or the kinds of fears we had because we failed in something and project it on our children. That's the worst thing you can ever do. And then some other people ask, I'm not interested in going abroad. I just want my child to be. Exactly. That's why I told you my story. My mother does not live abroad. She never lived abroad. But I was able to access global opportunities because the values were instilled very early on. And then whatever else was done was just a build-up of that. But in practical terms, I know we're saying, this one you're talking values. That's like all intangible. That's all. It's very important. But I also think I need to give you like steps, or I can't call them like step by step do this, but I think those are some of the practical things, like actionable things that you can do to position yourself and your child. Why do I say position yourself and your child? Self-education is important. Self-awareness is important. It is with you knowing yourself and being self-aware that you can accept certain things about yourself and that you can accept certain things about your child. Because our children, like we are as spiritual beings, we're just a guide for a time, right? And in that time, we should be careful not to pour our insecurities into our children, whether knowingly or unknowingly, right? And allow them experience things on their own. Allow them be in a team and lose to the other side. Allow them fall down and get up and finish the race. That's what life is about. Okay, you can't make life perfect for them, but you can build them up to the point where they can live the best life based on the kind of opportunities that they can access, right? So let me give you some of the points that I wrote down. I wrote them down so that I don't forget. First of all, what can you do as a parent, right? We've heard of all these things. You can send your children abroad. You can have them go to the best schools all over the world. Do you need all the money in the world to do it? Not necessarily. If you've done your groundwork well, money isn't the only pathway to a global education or a global career for your child. It's one of the ways. Having money is a good idea, right? So yeah, I would always advise if your children are still pretty young, you can start an investment for them towards their education, just so it takes the stress off you. And then if they get to that age and they're able to access the scholarships, fantastic. It's a double win. So you can now put that money into trust funds towards their, I don't know, a trust fund for them. You can convert it. Okay, there's no such thing as too much opportunity. It doesn't exist. Okay, so give them a good head start. And those are the kind of things I say when the first thing I say to any parent who wants to groom somebody that is valuable to the world. Like a good friend of mine would say, he says, the Bible said you are the salt of the earth, not the salt of Nigeria, not the salt of Abuja, not the salt of Lagos, the salt of the earth. What that means is that your value cannot be localized. Then it's not value. Salt is salt. So what it means is that if you are salt and you are only salt in Nigeria, but you are chaff outside of Nigeria, then what are you? I don't think you can be called salt. You have to call yourself another thing. So ensure that your children are the salt of the earth so that they can have the skills, they can have the foundation that can give them the stepping stone to access the opportunities. It doesn't mean their lives will be perfect, by no means, but they would have access to these opportunities. So first of all, I say to parents, pray for the grace. Pray for the grace to know these beings, because they're spiritual beings, like I said, that have been placed in our care. And pray for the grace to raise them up in their light, in their purpose, in their genius. Because all of us, we're all genii, I think that's the plural. So you are a genius, I am a genius. The only thing that differentiates the both of us is that one person has found their genius before the other person, but everybody is a genius. So pray for the grace to help your child find their genius. Then 2, start creating opportunities for your children to expand their minds as early as possible, just like my mom did for me. So like I said, it doesn't have to be expensive. Like for my mom, it was invitations she got from work, invitations she heard about, and she bought tickets for. It was in National Theatre. It wasn't, how much were tickets at that time? It didn't cost much, right? But it is an opportunity to learn. So always look for opportunities. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be expensive. Your child doesn't only learn when they go on excursion to Paris or they go on excursion to South Africa. No, there's so much happening. And thank goodness we have this whole, what this pandemic did was that it opened up new ways of learning. And we saw that our children could adapt because they were born in the age of technology. So even if we would have struggled, they're not struggling. No. They're not struggling at all. They are adapting better than I thought they would. And what that means is that you can now have dance classes in the comfort of your home. You can have crafts classes in comfort of your home. Will it be convenient? No, but we're not talking about what is convenient. We're talking about what is necessary to nurture a global citizen. So sometimes you're just gonna have to, be uncomfortable. Okay, so what else? Like I said, there's no such thing as too much activity. As a child, right, I thought that was how life was. I actually thought, if we get to do so many amazing things as children, just imagine what it would be like as an adult. That was my thought as a child, because it was full of teachable moments. It was full of fun, but I was learning. A second skill that I didn't talk about was things that we call in these days, things that I call presentation skills, or things that I say are like, what do you call it? Being good with speaking English. What's the word? Being eloquent. Yes, that's the word. I was on a children's program, I think for the better part of 3 years or so. I was still in primary school. I think I did it up to the point where I was like in JS2 or thereabout, and then I had to stop because I left Lagos. We interviewed heads of states. We interviewed heads of civil service. We interviewed bankers. We interviewed, we were children, but, that gave me the confidence, because what it was doing was it was building confidence. So every single thing I did built my confidence. It helped me with build my command of the English language. It helped me build learn how to build relationships with people that are way above my age range, with people that are way above my experience level. Those are things I was exposed to as a child. So I didn't struggle so much. I didn't struggle as much as a lot of my counterparts because I had a firm footing very early. Okay. So do that for them. It's not and remember, it doesn't always have to lead to something. You don't like for me, being part of that TV program did not mean I wanted to be a broadcaster. I was just part of a TV program because it was fun and I was learning, in a fun environment. And as long as you were learning in a fun environment, my mom was all for it. So yeah, so they can actually learn stuff that can end up being a hobby. That's okay too. It's okay. Join parenting groups in different circles. Support is crucial. It's crucial in these times. One of the places we went to learn about arts and crafts was a colleague of my mom's in the office who suggested it to her, right? So it's not as if all these ideas were just in her head and she was such a super mom and she just used to pull them out like that. She had help and she was willing to listen, right? So do that for yourself and for your kids. Ask for help, please. We have gone past all that story of in my parents' time we didn't do that. You can see I'm referring to my own parents' time, but I'm not leaning on it as a crutch. I'm still reading. I'm still asking for help. I still call Mary Beth. I still say, oh, I don't know what to do at this point. Ask for help. Read, attend conferences, call around and get a parenting expert or somebody who has shown results in an area that you're interested in to point you in the right direction. Ego and progress are not close relatives at all. You have to drop one. Make friends with the other one. So if you are going to grab ego and hold onto it, that's fantastic. Don't expect progress. But if you're going to grab onto progress, then ego has to take a back seat. You can't have both. Another point is start with the end in mind. Like I said, it's not going to be convenient. It's not about convenience, right? So as much as possible, try and have fun alongside your children in these learning moments. You can make it a family affair, right? Don't just, like I think one of the previous speakers said, where you just put, or Mary Beth, I think with the last speaker or the two speakers before now, where you just throw your children into an activity center and you just disappear. I mean, no. If you can, once in a while, encourage them to try and look for ways where you can all be together. Like if it's swimming, all go swimming together. It doesn't have to be competitive, but it's something that they enjoy doing. And then when they see that they are interested in it, you can move on. Let me give an example. Like music is important, right? For us as a family. So we had always known that we were going to do music lessons of some sort, but there was nothing forceful about it. For my kids right now, we do piano lessons at home, even with the lessons in school that they have, of learning different instruments. But I also noticed that my son has a particular talent for music, right? So if later on he decides, oh, I want to pursue this, then we would be prepared because we've seen it early on. So we've started doing research. Okay, what are the exams you do? What are the kinds of academies you can go into? Not because we want him to go to everything and win everything, but because we just want to be prepared so that if he gets to that point and he's presented with the opportunity, he can access it, right? Because believe it or not, there are universities around the world that you can be a C student, C in quotes, can be a C student or a B student, but you play the piano excellently and you get a scholarship. These are the things, okay? Let me go on. I think I have 2 more points to do. And then, like I said, when you're starting with the end in mind, it's not going to be convenient. Sometimes you're going to have to forego that nice bag or that nice car or that upgrade on your car and put that money in a fund, in an educational fund for your children that will be funding all these activities activities, because let me tell you, it adds up. So if you're waiting to put your salary under pressure every month to have your children do these activities, you will fall flat. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. And you see, planning ahead that's where planning ahead comes in. When you plan, you're able to say, okay, we can afford piano lessons from now till now. This is how much piano lessons are. So we put aside so and so for piano lessons. It's planning, right? Sometimes you would expose your child to some things. You'll see that they're not really into this whole dance thing, right? They can play around with it. But when they decide to become serious, or where you want to push them forward, is where you've seen their potential. Just like I said with my son, where we saw the potential in music. And that's why we've, pushed him a little more than, just doing it as a hobby, because we've seen that he can do it, and it's something he's interested in, something he's really good at, right? If you don't expose them in the first place, you will not know what they're good at. You will just assume and say, this my son cannot even do anything. How do you know? There are so many parents that have put their children on a particular plane, not because the children did not have those skills, but because the parents did not expose them to those things. So how do you know you don't know something when you've never tried? And which is why I'm not afraid of trying. Like Mary Beth said, because it's just something I grew up with, that last, I will fall flat on my face. I will dust myself and get up. And then I'll know this is not for me. This is not the path. But I will learn the lesson and I will move on. I will not die. And the quicker they learn how to do that, the more resilient you become. And then a no doesn't seem so heartbreaking anymore. By the time you've gone through some of those experiences early on, you begin to grow tough skin. For some of our children, they've never heard no. They've never heard no, you can't have it. Or no, do this first before you get that. They've never heard it. So they don't understand the concept of delayed gratification. They do not understand that entitlement is a problem. We are raising entitled children who cannot compete. And it is becoming an epidemic, which is why we need to do more of these conferences. And I applaud Mary Beth for even doing this one, because if we continue with this as business as usual, our fight is different too. As adults, as parents, we know these things, but sometimes we don't like to we don't like to speak out and say things as they are. I don't know if it's fear or if it's that you don't want to speak negative, but sometimes it's not speaking negative, it's admitting the situation and then following up with actions, intentional actions to make that situation better. That's all. Hope is not a strategy in this matter. In making sure that your child is valuable as a global citizen, you cannot leave it to chance. It is not happening. It cannot happen. Because you know what? The world will just use them to clean the ground and throw them away. They have to have a value, and they have to know in themselves that they are valuable to the world. Okay, so it's not just about skills and teaching them all these different things. Let them learn how to sew, let them learn how to. So those are where the values come from. And if you've been paying attention during this conference, you would have already seen where they talk about having a connection with your child, teaching your child about the values, teaching your child a value system, putting structures. Those things count. They make a huge difference. And then the last thing, you cannot give from an empty cup. Some of us feel inadequate, right? Like I said before, sometimes we project our fear onto our children, excuse me, and we say, this athletics thing safe. Shebi, in my school, I came first and they took somebody else that was the house master's school daughter, and they didn't put me. So I don't want my child to go through that. Who told you your child will go through that? Who told you that you went through it? Who told you your child will go through it? Look, in fact, let me talk about this sporting matter. I come from an athletic family, right? So I told you my mom was taking part in these competitions when she was a teenager. So it wasn't strange to me. And I was very good. I was a very talented athlete in primary school and the beginning of secondary school. But I didn't pursue it because in my mind, I thought, if I get injured, right, will I not become a liability, both to my mom, who has worked so hard to put us through and make sure that we're all, front and center? And will it now not be an additional burden? Plus, it doesn't guarantee a future. That was my thinking at the time. Now, so I stopped being active and I just dropped out of active sports. But then after secondary school, I now started seeing, in fact, what even drove it home for me was there was a friend of mine. He was also in the children's program that I was in, right, for some years. And we lost touch for a while. And then after secondary school, I must have been 17 or 18, thereabouts, trying to figure out which school to go to and all of that. And I used to go to the stadium then, because my aunt used to work in the stadium, in the sports commission. And I would go there and I would watch tennis competitions. I mean, we're a really sporty family, right? So we would always go to watch tennis competitions. And this particular day, I saw him and I was like, oh, what's he doing here? My dear friends, this guy was coming to pick up a document. Do you know what was in the document? So apparently, he had learned to play lawn tennis as a child. And he had taken part in the lawn tennis competitions that had been held by the council or the sports federation. He had never won the trophy. He wasn't like top 5 or top 3, but his name was in the ranking. So he was a ranked tennis player from Nigeria. Do you know this is how this boy got a free ride to the United States of America for his entire degree? Let me explain again. He was not the best. So he was not the highest ranking lawn tennis player in Nigeria. He was a competitor. So in my mind, I'm thinking, are you joking? So me that I have to go and be killing myself, writing SAT, wondering whether whether I've made the cutoff mark. So you mean if I had just been competing in maybe relays or all these competitions that go around, even if I had to pay, and my mom was someone that knew about that kind of stuff. So it wasn't something that she was going to be alien to do or say, no, what do you mean by that? I can't be taking you for competition. She would have been more than happy to take me anywhere for these competitions. And I let that pass. At that point, that was the only time I can say that I regretted not continuing with athletics. But luckily for me, academics still held forth for me. But you can imagine if, for instance, I had an episode in school that made my GPA drop, or if there was a lecturer that just had time for me and decided that my GPA was not going to be up to the 4 points, whatever, and it fell to 2.5. That's it though. All this talk would not have happened. And that's why I'm saying, if you can, make those sacrifices early so that your children can have those opportunities. That it did not happen for you is not an excuse. Lastly, you cannot give from an empty cup, right? Some of us feel inadequate, like I said, and it just feels like we don't measure up, we can't keep up. If you don't like where you are, move. You're not a tree. I know I've heard it before. If you don't like your current status, be obsessive about your personal development. Become a better person. If you need to go for classes, go. If you need to be the one to go back to school in another country so that your children can access these things, go. If you need to take up another opportunity for your children to access these opportunities, take it. Whatever it requires, because really you can only guide your children as far as you yourself can see and as far as your mind can conceive. If all you know how to do is survive, you cannot teach your child to thrive in this world. And I'll stop there because I have so much to say. So let me stop so that you can ask me any questions. And if there's anything I've missed out, yeah, I can handle it now.
All right then. So thank you so much, Akugo. I mean, we have been listening to you. Yes. So basically, you're saying to us there are so many ways, and there's so many. I mean, there are many opportunities out there, and there are different ways that our children can access this opportunity. So there's no need for you to come and focus on just one thing, and I mean, just focus on one thing alone. If there is, I mean, if you find an interest that you can hone in your children, go ahead and hone it. But in all of this, nothing will happen if they do not have the basic, I mean, they do not have the basic or the requisite skills that will help them thrive. And these skills are like emotional skills, I mean, social skills, because all of this is what your mom was trying to do. She knew that, you know, for you to thrive, it doesn't matter whether you were smart or whether you were academic, you were doing well academically. Your mom could see that it goes beyond the scores from the classroom, isn't it? So with all the academic excellence or whatever, she knew you needed social skills. You needed to go out there and see how people related. You know, it brings me back to what the last speaker was saying, ZOB, the homeschooling home. Okay, so while she was talking, people were saying something like, someone asked the question, how will I balance social skills or something like that for my child if I'm homeschooling? And you know, she went on to answer, you know, who said that it's only in a classroom setting that your children can get social skills? I mean, just look at what your mom was doing with you. You know, when you go out to this space, you will see how people related. You will have to make conversations. Do you understand? I mean, that at the stadium, I mean, while you're coming, these are all different ways that we make, you know, we interact with people and we get these skills. You know, sometimes you just stand, sitting down somewhere quietly and watching how people interact. That alone is teaching. As you said, they were not raising their voices at each other and all of that. And, you know, it probably added up to why you are calm as a person, because you have watched people who made sense have conversations and they were not at each other's neck. You know, so it doesn't, and then there's something you said that's profound for me. You know,
exactly.
In all of these, there wasn't like a lecture where your mom had to sit you down and say, you know, this week we're doing emotional intelligence. Now sit down here, emotional intelligence is so. She lived it. That's what we're talking about. That's what it means to be a mentor parent. Living what you want to see in your children. And when you live this and your children see it, you know, we learn more from what we see than from what we hear. Children do. Okay, children do. What's that quote? Is it? I can't remember the quote. Benjamin Franklin or so is the one that had. I saw that quote somewhere. I can't remember. If you show me how, right? If you tell me, I might remember, right? If you tell me, I may forget. If you show me, I may remember. But if you have me do it, then I will learn. So basically, you're having this child see what you're doing, and then you are creating opportunity for the child to exercise or the child to practice what it is that they see you doing. That is the best way to teach anybody at all, be it a child or an adult. And this is what we preach here. Be the mentor parent. Live it. Let the children see you living it. And that way, it reduces the amount of time so that we don't all become preachers. I said, I don't know when I said this, maybe it was one of my classes recently. I said,
Yeah.
they go to church, they listen to preachers preach. They go to the mosque, preacher is preaching. They go to school, the teacher is more or less a preacher. Then they come home, you continue to preach. They get tired.
To preach.
Do you understand? They
Yeah.
get tired. So why don't you decide
I
to be the
agree.
one
And
who
another thing I
isn't
missed out,
preaching so?
just quickly,
Yeah.
Mary Beth. Another thing, one last thing, is to document. Because
Uh-huh.
living in this part of the world, we take certain things for granted. So if your child is good in if he goes for a competition, whether he wins or not, his name is on a list with other competitors, and this is a global competition. Take a picture of that thing, laminate it. Take a picture of him
Create a
competing,
portfolio.
laminate it. Why? Because when you are applying to schools, when you're saying, oh, he's a talented individual, they will ask for evidence. And most times that's where we fall short. It's not as if we're not doing all these things, but we're not keeping track of them. So yeah, I just remember that. So keep track.
Wow, wow, wow. So thank you so much, Akugo. I mean, there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. I mean, and sometimes the lessons are not the loudest ones. Sometimes the lessons are in just quiet conversations like this. You know, sometimes they're just in quiet conversations like this. And by the time you talk,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much. I mean, some people will be expecting you come here and say, okay, to get scholarship, you need to write to this embassy. You need to write to this school. You need to write. I mean, some people probably had
No.
that at the back of that. You have to write it. You have to write it. No, it's not in that. It's the preparation. Prepare, and then when the opportunity
Do you know
comes,
why?
you are able
Do you
to
know why?
yeah.
Yeah, because these things change, right? They change over time. The best bet to beat the competition each time is to be prepared in any way, shape, or form that you can bed. Because if you go to any site, it will tell you all the criteria you need. Okay, you need to show, like I said, giving them the opportunity. So if you have a child that's really good in sports, what competitions has he gone on? What has he done? Was he
Don't.
the captain in the sports team? Was he the most valuable player? What evidence do you have to show? So as a parent, it's not enough to just know. What do you need to do? And that's what I focused more on, right? But yeah, people can contact me. Yeah, they can contact you if they have additional questions or more specific questions about um, how their
Yeah.
children can access these
Thank you.
opportunities, of
Thank you.
course.
Thank you so much, Akugo. Yes, so Akugo, for those who will be catching the replay, for those who are here right now, Akugo does a lot of these things. You help people access admission, even for those who are not children. Okay, even for you, even for you, she
For
has all
adults.
the information. Yeah, for adults. Even for you, the mom that wants to go and do a master's and all of that, she has all this information at her fingertips, and she's very nice like that. Don't worry, she won't charge you too much. But you know, there are opportunities out there, and there are opportunities out there, people, for kids, for adults, for you. The opportunities out there. If you don't ask questions, you just sit down there and continue to complain like every other person because you don't know the opportunities that are available. So come out like this, meet people like this, contact them, have conversations with them, and you will see that, as she said, I mean, the sky is very, very big. We can all fly in it, even at the point where we are shouting, the country is not good. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Akugo, for being here.
You're
Thank you. We have
welcome.
learned so much. I have my jotter full. I'm going to take my one or two things. I was saying to them earlier on, when I come for conferences like this, every time people speak, I take one or two things and immediately I drop it in my toolbox and I run with it immediately. As in, I take one thing. If two is too much, I mean, I just take one and I decide this one I'm going to start implementing
One
like
thing.
right away. So I'm going to take my 1, 2 here and start implementing right away. So thank you very much, ma'am, for your time, for sharing your knowledge and
Thank you.
everything. Thank you
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
promoting this project.
Thanks for having me.
Have a lovely, lovely evening. And the network decided
You
to
too.
leave.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right, people. So that is it for this evening. This is the end of our session for day. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so this is the end for day 2 session. Whoop, 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 whoop. So tomorrow we're back here, and tomorrow we're going to be talking with young people. We're going to be talking with young people who are already pursuing or making baby steps towards their purpose. So we're going to have young people. We're going to have Yuki Unum. Yuki is a young, I mean, he's a very young man, right? He started doing using his skill to earn income, impacting. He's a social media influencer, and he started like many years, like up to like 5 years back. He's only in his early 20s, so you can imagine he probably started somewhere, I mean, around when he was 15 or thereabouts, right? Then we have Chidibem, that is a footballer, and she's a girl. She's only 12 years old, right? Then we have that day Posh. We have all these children, and we have Kamsi Ochiku, who has just finished writing his book, and he's an entrepreneur. So let's hear from the lips of babies, right? Let's hear from the lips of the children that we are supporting. Let's hear their perspective, and let's hear what the children think, or how they are walking this journey. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. So tomorrow is our sessions tomorrow are sessions that you don't want to miss. Okay, and I would advise you can go through. You can join that session with your child. It would be nice to join the session with the children. Let them come and be inspired by other kids, right? Let them come and be inspired by other kids. Let them see other kids pursuing purpose already. Let them see other kids daring to make a fit. Let them see other kids dare to come on screen and speak to grown-up. This is all what we're talking about. Building social skills, emotional skills. It's all in the project. It's all a part of the goal. Akugo just said it doesn't have to be to an end. Everything we do does not have to end up being just to have what you want the child to learn in that process. It doesn't have to be that they must end up being a particular thing because you're exposing them to certain areas. As she said, she did not end up being a broadcaster, but being in that TV show, okay, that she was in, helped her in many other areas. So we want to expose our children in these many ways so that they can build skills. We have been talking skills. It goes to show that in this matter of parenting, skills is very, very important for your children. So thank you very much, everyone. Once more, thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. Thank you for trusting us to be a part of your parenting journey. We'll sign out this evening, and we'll come back here tomorrow, I think at 2 p.m. for our first session. Thank you very much. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely evening. Bye.
Meet the speakers. Ronke Oyenuga, educationist and head of school at Green Path Preparatory School, Abuja. Aloyshima Jennifer Shapara, curriculum coordinator at Odyssey Nursery Khalifa, Abu Dhabi, UAE, teacher trainer and assessor. Z Obi, founder of the Home Educators Network and Academy, author and homeschooling mom. Akugo Anye Bunam, international development specialist, author and social innovator.